right, we are live and everyone is here.
We are
Hello,
live.
everyone. Welcome to day 3 of Leap Week. You may have noticed that we are having a bit of a scheduling change, as is mentioned in the chat. We hope our friends at Ryanair can join us for a future session as part of a different Leap Week. But for now, we are running a very special edition of the office hours, which we run bi-weekly usually. And we are joined with the OGs of Alex and Jonathan. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Jonathan, solutions engineer here at Directus, and so excited to be here. I love office hours, and I see the questions are already flying in. It's one of our favorite questions, Alex, is the first one being asked.
Great. Hey everyone, I'm Alex. I'm a solutions engineer here at Directus as well. I've been here a couple of years now, and it's been great. Looking forward to all your questions.
Amazing. So just before we start answering questions, and while you have time to write them out in the chat, I know that some people have already started asking questions. Amazing. Let's do this one instead. Here we are. And if I just switch to here, we do have our usual icebreaker that we're going to stick with for the format. So while you are thinking of your questions, we would also love to know where you are joining us from, what are you building, and what your tech stack is. And yes, Jonathan, Magic Man, Alex, AVDV. Alex, do you want to give the context of why we call you AVDV, just for those that might not know?
It's very easy. It's just my initials. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't do better than that. So from the first 2 days, we have had people joining from all over, so it's been really great to see. So if you are live in the chat, do let us know what brings you here, where you first found out about Directus is always another answer I really like to hear. So yeah, should we just kick off into it? Amazing.
I love it.
For the first question we have is, how would you organize CI/CD to EC2 instance? How do you keep the difference between prod and local envs in one repo? Any GitHub actions? And bonus question, and then how do you trigger the server restart? Do one of you want to share your screens and I'll hop off?
Yes,
I can start. As well. Amazing.
We need to
Unless
share.
Alex wants to play.
Here we are.
I have some follow-up questions on that one.
Maybe ask the questions whilst we're getting set up.
I think the follow-up question is really, do you need to use EC2? Because it's kind of like, it's good, but it's a bit more complex as well. There's other solutions that we have. We've put out some documentation for Railway. Of course, they joined us this week as well. It's super easy to get started with Railway. And then you can actually get started building instead of like trying to decide your infrastructure. But that's, I'm sure you might have some reasons as well for using EC2. So just wanted to throw that out there before we get into it.
I like it. What's the project? What's the requirements? Where you're from, Sergey? We'd love to know that as well while we get started here. It's a common question. The product team is working on improving this overall solution for this, but in the meantime, Directus Labs has a bundle for this, migration bundle, that can be utilized as a mechanism and means for migrating data from one environment to another. And it includes everything: policies, permissions, users, flows. It's an all or nothing. That's the only kind of real drawback that I have with the migration bundle. You can do an all or nothing in the sense of I can all export. You can potentially migrate to an in-between or use the endpoints under the hood. It is a bundle designed for the studio, but it has endpoints under the hood as well. So you have options for that. So if you're a GitHub's pipelining kinds of persons, you can go scripting routes. One other repo that's useful, well, there's a couple of other repos that are also useful under community. This is another community maintained extension. So this is not us. This is a community maintained extension team that has a fairly large SaaS deployment of Directus. They do all kinds of interesting things. Some of our clients and partners and users have found success using this as well. There's some pros and cons to both. The product teams evaluated both, as well as some other tools. So there are some future roadmap project items in flight right now to improve the migration experience between environments. It's something we hear a lot. Technically, because we're headless, you can automate this. And these days with the MCP servers, for those of you that are or are not aware, you can configure and set up your AI MCP server directly in the studio these days. If you enable that MCP server, you can have Claude Code or your favorite utilities write whatever migration scripts that you want, and you can be as prescriptive and as focused as you want that to be. So a number of options today, fairly, kind of user project specific in a sense at the moment, until we get some of the new features online in a few months here. So does that help, hinder, follow-up questions? Did I answer everything that you wanted?
We love a follow-up question too. So yeah, don't worry about asking one too many questions all in a row. We love a follow-up question. This has been established with the regular office hours. And I will also just drop the link to where we host our regular office hours as well. So if you are thinking, oh, I have a question, or you're like, the session ends and you're like, oh, I did have a question, you can join us for a future session as well.
And I almost forgot, this is another option. This is something that we use for snapshotting environments outright. So a bit of a variation between those two, I think. So I'm giving Beth the links. She'll throw them in the chat here.
Yeah, this template CLI is quite interesting because there's 3 APIs in Directus that you can actually pull the fields, the collections, and the relations. So if you need to start snapshotting and moving things around, those 3 APIs will give you, or there's the schema endpoint as well, which pulls everything out. But also in those 3 APIs, you can pull all the fields, which includes all the configuration, like drop-down options, icons, little helper text, and so on. And then the collections is obviously all the collections, and all the relations, you can pull those out and apply them to your production or your other environment. And basically the payload you get out is the payload you put in. So you can use those APIs as well to snapshot and version control your schema. You don't even need the MCP. You could just vibe code it, the whole thing.
It's true. It's true. Data migrations, ETLs. Honestly, the LLMs have seriously accelerated some of that work. So it's nice. Sergey has found some success. He's going to look at the sync. Nice. Love it. As noted, though, it is, you've got a number of options because we're headless. Just a reminder for those that are new or aren't aware, anything and everything you can do, whether that's data model aspects, whether that's flow creation, whether that's content editing and management, everything is powered by the APIs. So you always can go to the docs, or more fun, you can actually watch the network traffic and watch the API calls. So if you're not sure what Directus does under the hood from the studio side, or how something works, how does the filters work? What do the filters look like? How do complex filters get created, and what do they look like in the JSON payloads? I test this. I just turn on CLI tools, turn on your networking tools, take a look at the traffic. You can watch the traffic from the studio and see the API calls and the payloads and the formats and how things are done. When new features come online and I'm not sure, I can go look at the API docs, but sometimes it's just nice to see live example, go through the manual actions in the studio, watch that API traffic, collect those calls, look at the formats. Now I can codify that or just understand at least how we operate. So lots of fun stuff there.
Yeah, and that one as well, viewing the raw value as well is super useful. If you're in a form, you can toggle, thanks, Jonathan, like especially if you're working with with blocks and relations, you can actually view the raw value of that blocks field, and then it kind of shows you exactly what the API will return as well. So that's really, really useful. If you hover on that little the caret next to the blocks. Oh yeah, anywhere there.
More interesting with I picked a bad thing.
the blocks field is a good example, because like if you go and edit a block here and then go, or if you, yeah.
You want to see the block field here, just this?
Yeah, exactly. So especially, so this is just storing the IDs right now, but if you edit one of those blocks, then you can see what the payload is going to be when you do submit that back in, or when you do save that page. So yeah, especially when you're working with relations and nested relations and so on, the API is very powerful, but then there's a lot happening in that single API query, of course.
Yep. Very fun stuff. Did we get another couple of questions come inbound?
We did, and I've unlocked a new button. Showing on the screen. Beautiful.
Where's the button? What is it? Oh.
It's a show. Paul, hey, hello. You've been here the whole time. We appreciate you. Where is the symptom prompt located? So one could maybe build off of it.
Where's the system prompt located? So one could maybe build off of it. That's going to be in the source code. And I don't know. I've never gone. I think I've seen it when I was doing some stuff a couple of months ago. But if we go to GitHub, so open source project or source available project, as you might like to call it these days. You have a source available project. You can come in and find just about anything that you want. So if we were to look at system prompt, let's see if I can actually use GitHub today and find what we're looking for. There it looks like right here. So chat constants, system prompt, communication style, behavior rules, all this stuff. So most of these things just live in the source code for that aspect. There are some recommendations. There's some stuff in the docs as well. So docs gives you kind of a jump start. Is there a best prompt? Maybe, maybe not. Typically, what I do is I initiate the AI prompts. So for the users, giving them prompt capabilities. So the chat assistant and the MCP, if you're connecting that to your tools. So if you have something like Claude Code, right, if you're a Claude user like I am, I've connected Claude to a couple of my projects via the connectors. So you can set up connectors, you can turn them on and off. So Visual Editor is the demo that we were just kind of in a second ago. And if you enable prompting, so if you set up that AI prompts collection, then you can actually have user prompts stored and saved. And that gives them then the ability to utilize those prompts in the front end here. So they can actually utilize those prompts and data. And they've changed so much about this stuff. I haven't been in here in a little while. Where are my prompts?
I'm trying to find the prompts in our docs quickly, but yeah, we can share that afterwards.
Yeah. No, I'm actually looking for the actual prompt that I have configured. Is somebody telling me something? Yeah, project type. Again, MCP and the LLM have understanding of your schema and your project anyway. So to a degree, they have that. I think what Paul or some others were asking was directly related to what other prompts or system prompts can I enhance in the platform. And I think I did some additional system prompt updates to mine here. It's going to be a little bit project specific. So you do want to tell it something, if you want to give it some guidance and guardrails around your project specifically, you can do that. So behavioral instructions and other things here. So the AI system prompts here. You can structure this however. I think I started with the default, but I think I added just a few little things here for my demo environment specific to it, but nothing particularly fancy. Overall, the team is working to improve those system prompts each release. The latest release, 11.17, that dropped this week, has some updates and improvements to the system prompts again. And the goal there, so the system prompt is particularly complex for us because you have all these skills. And when we initially started this process, we've been in fast iteration mode on improving this. The initial context window, just starting up the MCP chat or starting a chat with the LLM, consumed like 40,000 tokens. Just turning it on, just enabling it. So just starting a chat context because of all of these tools. So the team and the LLM providers and the tools and the skills and the things that they're supporting as well, there's been this iteration to improve that overall. And the team did another big update in the latest release this week. For those of you on cloud, I believe we will be releasing that next week. So you'll see a cloud update coming next week. We post those updates in the Directus Cloud chat notifications there. So if you're not familiar with that, or you are a cloud user but weren't aware, the team does post updates in Directus.cloud. Apparently not logged in right now, so let's take care of that. So you'll get notifications here, and you've got all of these kinds of things: monospace, demos, everything else, all your data and information. Where's my team? I don't even know where my team is anymore. There it is. So my demo magic and those kinds of things. But you do get in-app notifications. So actually right there it is. So there you have it. Next week, Tuesday through Thursday, cloud upgrades will be happening. So new release notes, get access to the release notes and all that fun stuff. So lots of cool stuff coming.
Beautiful. We've had another question come in from Luca. Any extension, so is there an extension to implement Wizard UI that guides the users into a sequence of steps to populate data?
Ooh. Lindsay did something with that. Are you familiar with what Lindsay did for the demo, the sandbox?
Sandbox. Yeah, that was, I believe that was more like a overlay.
Was it an overlay?
Yeah, but I think
I think in that general sense, using the header, or what was formerly the super header as a custom extension, is now a native interface. So there is, the ability to have like inline helps for the users, and you can put these anywhere in the system. So and it includes action options, so you can give them buttons, you can give them links to other systems, you can pass parameters, do all kinds of fun stuff with this guy as well. So there are other options. The team did some overlay work, as Alex noted, but I think for just inline, this is something that I find super helpful. And if you take the time to put the effort into making this useful for the users, if you want to know where and how to set that up, in pages here. So this was done originally with the super header. So this existed before we had the built-in interface. So you can see both the extension here on that interface side. This is where you can configure that help. Now I'm going to flip and we'll go create one here just so you can see how it happens with the new setup as well. It's very similar. We took a lot of the information from this as the building block for the new interface. So down here are actions and buttons, enable help translations, and some other things here on the super header. But similar kinds of things. If you create a field, search for header. This is the native interface now. And you can configure, again, your title. Once again, your title can actually come from your collection. So you can do things like content. Maybe I want the actual title of this particular thing. Colors, icons, all those fun things. Your help, your display modes, enabling translations. So you can actually turn on help string translations and other aspects here. But the links here is one of the more powerful things that you get with this now, is the URL or a flow. So if you have flow options that you want to utilize, you can actually set flows and then select your manual flows to trigger as well. So you now have triggering function for your manual flows built in rather than being in that sidebar. So traditionally, before super header and before the header setup here, your options for triggering those flows lived over here, as opposed to putting it here where it's kind of more in line for the user. And that header can be placed anywhere. So you can have different headers for different sections, which is another nice thing that you can have. You can have specific help for if you have complex sections later in your form, then you can have helps and inlines there as well.
Also just some of the standard fields like the accordion. You could start to use those. It's not essential. It's going to get you a very similar experience to a wizard UI, where you can have each accordion section have a header with some help documentation, as Jonathan showed, and then obviously you can open each section of the accordion one by one without sort of overwhelming the user with like hundreds of fields potentially.
They can get complex,
which is what my to look like.
I don't know that I actually have a good example with any of our default demo stuff. I thought I'd set something up, but I think that was in one of my other projects.
Is that with the accordion?
Yeah. I was just trying to think if I actually have anything accordioned. We have the cool, we have some of those custom extensions here with things like tabbed interfaces. So varying styles. So this is another form of grouping interface where you can have different groups, subgroups inside of a group. So these are specific interfaces, extensions. And again, live in that extensions repo, the Directus Labs repo. We've got a few of those there. You're always also welcome to search through the marketplace. So the marketplace has a whole series of both some of our Directus Labs things, but more importantly, a large number of client community-based extensions as well. So if you're ever curious about or looking for something, it's a good place to search and see. So address completion interfaces, you can search based on types and data and information. So if I'm looking for extension panels for my dashboards, trading view panels, so some interesting things there. I'm just navigating around. I don't know if this was last updated quite a while ago, so not a great example. But if you're looking for something, there's a large number of extensions and marketplace options out there as well to take advantage of and learn from. Tour group interface.
Do keep the questions coming because there is one more, but then we are running out. So this is a call for fresh questions to keep coming in. But this is one I can actually handle. So we have NL say, I guess you can't answer this, but when it is a live notification system coming, this is so important for any Directus Studio instance where multiple people work in. And as far as I know, on the roadmap, which I'm not going to go into too much because
it already exists.
Really?
Collaborative editing was enabled 2 months ago. January release. So
new news.
if Alex were to log in here as well, we could actually play. We'll see if he remembers how to log into this demo. He runs everything local these days because he's
don't worry, I got my passwords.
Power user, man.
Just go to the home page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there I am right there.
See? There's Alex. So collaborative editing was an extension for a while. But as of the January release, which I think was 11.14, and don't quote me on that because I could be wrong. We do monthly releases and I can't always keep track of what the numbers are and when things happen, but collaborative editing was released. So if Alex were to say, try and edit the permit link, we would actually see in real time, see him lock this field. Or update statuses or do things, he's seeing the same thing on his side. So as we navigate around through here, if we're editing or doing something, it actually locks for the user. And so you can see those kinds of things, and that's all real-time editing in that sense. Different translations in articles. We'll have a look at that here in a second. Let's finish up on Studio. So for those of you, if you have not enabled it, configuration for collab, I'm trying to remember if it was a collection level. I don't think it is. I think it's actually a settings level for that. not something I set up frequently, and I forget sometimes where we put it. There it is.
There we go. Yeah, there it is.
So
Yeah.
in your settings, collaborative editing, you can turn that on. So it is an opt-in option. But if you enable collaborative editing, you will now get that collaborative experience in the UX. Hopefully that helps. Did that answer? Was that the question that was being asked? I'll confirm that first to make sure I'm not making anything.
So this is why my confused face was maybe at present. I was like, I'm sure we were talking about like the notification updates, which is currently in the roadmap. I refer to the bell alarm left bottom corner. Yes. Yeah. So as far as I think this is actually about, let me find the link for us all.
Cool.
Give me 1 second. I'll share it here as well. Again, we have a what's next, which covers the roadmap in itself coming up later today, which is a good segue for mentioning it. But I think this is the real-time notification system that is currently in the ideas section of the roadmap. And then there's the link to the discussion there as well.
Let's go look at this ticket. I don't know what this is.
While Jonathan takes a look, yes, do keep on asking questions because otherwise I threaten them with going to other places to do recaps. So we would much rather have live questions than that too, but all good if you're out.
Yeah, I suppose, are you using the bell alarm at the bottom left through a flow? Because I suppose another alternative in the interim is just to use email notifications as well. So in the flows you can send out email notifications or in-app notifications or both.
Or have the users enable. You can actually allow the email option. So for your user, you can toggle that on or off. So if you allow the notifications to go to email. But again, that now is dragging you out of app, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
So if it was related to the notifications, then it does look like this is a roadmap item and something that will be coming in the future. Collaborative editing was a big step from my perspective, from a lot of the editors, like editing teams and things where they're collaborating on items. Giving you that real-time collab is a nice thing.
And on that topic, we have another question. When a user has only read permissions for a relationship field, when he focuses it, he will get an error message in the bottom right. Is this a known issue?
It's a new one to me, but it doesn't mean it's not available in the repo. So let's look at, we're in the Directus repo. What are we looking for there? This was, let's see if GitHub will be friendly today.
Yeah. That sounds like roughly right. I don't know what the error says, perhaps. We'll have to pretty easy to reproduce that by the sounds of things.
Should be, but highly recommend submit a ticket. Submitted issue. This looked like this was closed, so whatever this was got fixed. So this was fixed in 11:15. So I guess depending on your release, test again. But if you're still seeing this in latest releases, let us know, and we'll either submit a ticket here, or if you have support with us, email the support team. We'll get it looked at, because those kinds of bugs are not friendly or nice for our users.
And what are your best practice tips for submitting an issue for us to make it easier to find and solve?
Just good, detailed, describe the bug, cause, fix, suggestion. How do you reproduce it? Give us the version, give us the hosting, give us the information. So what's your environment? Sometimes environment is painful. This is also pretty well documented in the docs also. So again, If you're not sure, always go to the docs. I think it's report issue will get us there, hopefully. If I'm lucky. Bug reporting. Yeah. Just general triage processes and things. So review reporting and reviewing. So, but just good practices. If you can help us, indicate how we can reproduce it, especially if you've got a self-hosted environment. If you're running in Windows or you're running in some environment that is, not our cloud is running in AWS and GCP, and we've got containerized deployments and it's all Linux based. But some people self-host, or some people are running something in Railway, or there may be something environment related that's not necessarily, it's could still be a Directus problem, but it's something that we missed in testing or something else. So, okay. Where are we at question wise?
We have caught up. So while we wait for some more, I have a question for you both, which is, what are some common questions that you often see that you think that's as a really simple answer to, or not, but something that you think a lot of people could benefit from also hearing from you? It's a tricky one. There might not be one.
No, it's not, because again, we see a lot of common things. I think the most common things are the migration one that we covered first. That's something that we see, maybe not right up front, but as people start to get out of development and get into production environments, that kind of migration pipeline. So we covered that in pretty good detail at the beginning of this call. Other things that people are not as familiar with, and that is a little bit complex still for users. Search here covers top-level text fields. So it requires a little bit of knowledge about your actual data model, and this is where content editors don't always want, they're not database people necessarily. They don't have to be. They shouldn't have to be. But sometimes they'll think they're searching. So I think I saw something about, how do I find things in my translations or other aspects? Translations in our world is a many-to-many relational, which means all of the translations content lives in a junction table. And once again, we mask this for the users. So if you're in your, we'll do this in the other system where I know I've got translations. So my articles here. So we see the translations, right? And I feel like as a user, this should be directly searchable. In our native search, that is not the case, because translations lives in a junction table, and we can do this where we can show the hidden collections here. So we can see underneath translations here that my article translations actually live in a junction table. Now, if I have access to the junction table, or I'm aware that the junction table exists and I have the permissions to get to it, then I can come in and search directly here. And so I can search for data and information here. So now I can technically search for, Russian. Not a great example of doing some kind of a search, but we pre-tagged a bunch of these relations. This was a bunch of demo data that we populated many, many years ago. I've had this project for a very long time, but I can natively search because this is the top level text of this particular collection. So I had a discussion with a team just this week about this, and the ability to search for, in their particular case, you can start to set up complex filters like this, where I'm searching for pending translations. I'm looking for a language code with ENUS, or I'm looking for relational. So to search in those relational sets, I have to be aware a little bit of my data structures. Now I can see it by simply clicking here. I can see where my relational content lives. And so here's my translations. And if I want to search for something in the title of that translation, so again, if we wanted to do that kind of Russian,
you've got language code as US, so it's probably, yeah.
Crush that. Let's just get rid of the or. I am case sensitive right now, so Case sensitivity, you can turn that off as well. So again, you do have the option to choose. So we can choose case insensitivity, so we can do things like Russian now. So there are some details, in the way that the filtering operates. Probably the closest example would be something like Excel, right? If you're doing complex filters in Excel, you do some of this kind of thing. And users are I'm not discounting users' ability to understand this. It's a common question because they're not aware initially. They feel like the top level search should give them what they're looking for. The key there is to navigate through the actual relationals and do the search on the underlying relationship data. So hopefully that's a useful tip. It's something that we see. It's super powerful once you get the hang of this and you know how to use this. And the other key thing is, if this is something that I do fairly frequently, I can actually save this as a bookmark.
Stole my thunder.
Have a bookmarked save of this filter, and then I can just edit the text in the filter when I'm ready. So you do have the ability to create bookmarks as a user. So I can save this bookmark, and it saves the filters, it saves the layout, the columns, and the data that we have here. I use this frequently for if I'm doing like bulk exports regularly, or I'm doing, call it reporting kinds of things where there's something commonly that I'm coming to look for and I want to see the latest, I'm looking for all of my in review articles, and maybe I want to save a bookmarked filter for that so I don't have to come in and filter for this every time. Or, these kinds of things where I am constantly doing title translation searches. Well, if I save this, now it's going to save it potentially with Russian, or I can leave this blank before and then create the bookmark. It will save this with this filter and information here, and then I can just pop in. All I have to do is drop down my filter, and especially if you've got something like you saw earlier where I've got an and/or grouping, I've got multiple filters going on, I can save that as a bookmark and therefore make that very fast. So another useful thing that sometimes people aren't aware, that you have this bookmarking capability, and it'll save the bookmark in your data sets here. I think I have some on my CRM kind of.
Yeah, you still have there in a big way, John. But definitely, if you've got, my go-to is blog posts. You've got draft, published blog posts, and maybe legacy, right? You can save these as 3 bookmarks really easily and just toggle between the different things. And then taking that a step further as well, you can also define global bookmarks. So if you're a Directus admin, you can create these bookmarks and share them with groups of people or all the users in your environment. So again, we want to make it really easy for people for non-technical people to interact with data in a powerful way. You can set these up once, and then when your users log in, they will just see those bookmarks immediately available. You're still in control. You can define the scope of those bookmarks, but they can all leverage and use them on their day-to-day. So yeah, this is actually how we use Directus internally with some of our internal stuff as well.
And speaking of Directus, excellent segue to a question that came in. How many people are part of the core Directus team? Does anyone know this?
We are 45 to 50 people at the moment. I think we're actually at 44 right now, if my IT people side of my house remembers right.
Yeah.
So we've been in the between 40 and 50 people for a little over a year now, holding pretty steady.
That doesn't include as well.
We are looking for a sales rep in the U.S. marketplace. So if you know anybody that's looking, send them our way.
Beautiful, because I'm just about to.
Are you just about to post
yeah.
What's the
careers? Yeah, beautiful.
So you can always go to the careers page, account executive. I think we may have filled 1 or 2 of these recently, but we're always open to talking to people with good talent. The team is.
And a follow-up question: all of you work remote? We do. Yes, every one of us. Jonathan, where are you joining us from?
Where am I joining from? Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you guys. I broke the initial rule. I'm based in the Denver metro area of Colorado, in the U.S. Alex van der Valk.
And ironically, two of us are in the same location in London, in the UK.
Only
But
for
we
a
might as
little while.
we might as well be in different cities. We're far from each other, to be fair. It's not
Soon to be
close by.
soon to be continents apart.
Yeah. And we have another question.
Cool.
Is it good practice to expose and provide API for a junction table to be used in SPA?
I would answer that one. You probably need to provide read access to the junction table if you're referencing both those tables in your app. What will happen is if you don't have permission, if you have permission to the two tables but not the junction table, you just won't get those fields back. Something happened there. You just won't get the relationals out of the API, which is going to make things quite challenging. So yeah, definitely you can provide access to the junction table, and of course just use the read only permissions, so that if it's just reading content out, you're not going to have people potentially changing your data.
So like a content management policies, right? Directus granular permissions. Another common question that comes up: how do I control or set up my permissions? It's default deny outside of your administrator. So no one has access until you grant access, and access is at the CRUD level on a per collection basis. And as Alex said, if you don't grant permissions on your junction tables, you're not going to be able to, you can query each table independently. You're not going to get any of the relation content. So I can't do a deep filter, or I can't do a relational pull. We'll take a look at the APIs here in 1 second, just so you can see this. So you've got your policies here. The dark purple in this particular appearance setup is the primary color. The light purple is the alternate, but this indicates full access versus custom access or partial access. You have the ability to restrict who can see down to the item permissions as a row level filter, and field level is your columns, right? So what data do they have access to? So you control access. I might grant access to the junction table. Generally, you're going to need all 3 keys in the basic, but you might have alternate fields or other data in your junctions. You don't have to share all of it. You can control what's available. And then other key things, there is a public policy as well. Your public policies tend to give you, read access, and this is commonly on the API side of things. Public gives you CDN caching capabilities, particularly for things like assets. So if the assets are public anyway, if they're on your website or they're accessible through your public facing applications and tools, then making them public just speeds up performance, because that information can be cached out to the edge on the CDN side of things. So edge caching and those kinds of things are available through public policy. If it's not available through the public policies, then you are authenticating and validating every time, which means we can't cache it out to the edge. So it has to be validated and checked every time, because technically the data permissions or content could change in real time. Therefore, we want to authenticate and control that access at all times. Go ahead.
I think that answers Michael's first question around can I create users that have API permissions but not log onto the backend? Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. You can just give people. You could create users that only have access to read certain tables. App access is actually like a policy on its own, and it will grant permissions to the certain Directus collections that it needs. Then I remember seeing a select all shortcut on the field permissions, and I noticed it did disappear. But what you can do is you just give all permission and then go back to give optional permission. So when you give permission, it will select all. It was there, but it disappeared. So we'll have to get that one fixed with the team.
Yeah, I'd like to see that come back, because that is an annoying thing. But the trick is when you're creating policies, as Alex noted, So test policy here, we'll create something quick. So this is where you determine app or admin access. And again, this can be added later, but typically what I do is what you see here, that team app access. I typically set up one or two, you may have multiple app access policies because you may have different things you allow certain users or teams or roles to access. But generally I set up an app policy, and I apply that app policy when they need app access. If they don't need app access, then it's just API. But I kind of keep it segregated these days. Since we implemented the policy controls, it's made things nicer, but we'll create this quickly. We'll add a collection here. So I don't know, categories, doesn't matter. As Alex noted, if we just go straight to custom, I can drive my mouse, we'll see that nothing's selected here. Super annoying to have to individually click these because there's no select all right now, which is obnoxious. But the option is just make it full access initially, then pop back into custom. It will default set those. And now let's say that I don't want them to have access to the slug because they don't need to see it or whatever. I can control that. Creating user without a password would disable app access. Yes and no. They could still reset.
They need the app access policy though, right? They need one of the policies.
They have to have app access enabled in their policy settings. So yes. So at least one policy for the user has to allow app access. If you don't want them to have app access, the easiest thing is just not to give them a policy that includes any app access. And that way they can never log into the studio. And I can actually, no, I can't because that's a different project. I actually have one where I have just an API user and an app user for testing those kinds of things. And occasionally I'll accidentally click my non-app user when I'm logging into the app and it's like, Kara! But it just redirects and says, do you want to log back in with a different user? Yes, I want to log in with the right user, please. So I know that it works. I can't tell you the number of times I do that every week, logging into that particular project. Otherwise, creating a user without a password doesn't mean much because they can go through the reset flows and set a password technically. So if they're in the system with a valid email, then they can set their password.
Cool.
Good security practice wise, right? Even if you're creating an account for a user, I always create it with an empty password and just tell them to follow the reset password. That's our standard support access as well. So we don't create passwords that way. We're never responsible for having anyone's password, even though it's hashed and stored in the database. But if you're the person creating that password, you know what the password is, and therefore we don't typically do that. So common good password practices there. Go ahead, Beth.
Beautiful. We love security. Did we answer Desh's question on in-table layout? Is there any easy way to change the field level just on a UI level?
Say that again.
I didn't show you it. Okay, in the table layout, is there an easy way to change the field name just on UI level? Alex, you're nodding. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, there is. So you've got that translations section in the settings, and you can just basically just leverage the field naming translations to apply a different label. And that's great because it works for drop-down options, it works for field names, it works for collection names. In all those places where you see that little character, translations character, you can leverage that. And of course, based on the user's current language, it will apply that new label. Important to note, it is just UI level, so your API will stay the same.
Yeah, I think that was within the question. Hopefully, it sounds like that is what they want. So excellent. Did we answer, can you reset password if you don't have app access?
That is a good question.
I imagine there's an API for it. There's definitely an API.
Well, so there's an API, but I'm curious. I don't think I've actually tested that particular use. That's a good question. So Alex, I think if I don't have app access, but I have a user and I trigger the reset from the studio login, will it let me reset my password? Will it send me a reset? That's a good test.
We might have to outsource this to see if anyone
Back to
knows it concludes.
just real quickly to wrap up that using that translation there, and then I'll come back to this question. So this is hitting the endpoint, the items endpoint, and so we changed that to be my dash title for the studio in the field translations. So we see that here, my dash title, but in the API that is still title because it's the field under the hood. So those translations are strictly Data Studio, not for the API. All right. So then the password reset. How quickly can we test that? Test that. Let's create a quick user. Create. I have to use a real email. No password. We're going to set a...
Just no role at all, maybe?
No, I'm just going to set a... Do I know which ones of these? I'm pretty sure this guy does not have any app access. We'll double check it if we need to, but... So we'll create that. Should be good. So we now have... Should have copied that user, Jonathan plus test. I can remember that. I think I can remember that. Then, we're going to double check that policy too, just to make sure. Access policies, simple demo, no app access. Good. Okay, so we have a policy. We don't have app access, so if we sign out, and I want to do, I forgot password. Reset. I was afraid of that. I was thinking that it might let me do that. Refresh. See if I get the email. Yep, I just got a password reset request. So the answer is yes, you can. For better or worse.
Yeah, I think
trying to think about whether that's a bad thing or not. Probably it is. Maybe.
Well, as soon as you reset your password, you're going to get no app access allowed.
Correct. And I can do that. So we can show that as well. I'll reset the password. I'm going to set a password for this. I just want to make this quick because I'm going to delete this guy.
I suppose if you're rolling your own front end, you could still use these APIs to reset the password. And then I just don't know if we have the ability, or I just don't know how you would change the link in the email to link back to your own, like your own custom front end. But yeah. And just while Jonathan's doing that, you can have a user with a static token without a password. That's fine.
So we do still get the no app access, but I was able to trigger and reset my password through the studio.
there's some APIs that have been around that we haven't, like I haven't played around with much, like the user registration API for users to self-sign up. We're kind of getting into that realm now where you can, manage users and so on through the API. So I think there's definitely something around, password resetting and then sending out an email that links you back to a separate front end. If not, we should cover that soon, I guess.
Yeah, great question. Love it. Learn something new every day.
I think this is related to the table layout. So we've got a suggestion that the product category and both have name field in layout, and it would be good if we can change one field name, e.g. category name. Whenever there is any feedback like this, The roadmap now is the best place to put it. So if you do have things that you'd like to suggest, I will drop the link to the roadmap, and there is a section in there as well. Plus in the what's next in Directus section later on, it tells you exactly how to do that as well. So that's there. We have a couple of minutes left, so we are going to start wrapping up slowly. But yes,
Nice.
both of you, where if we run out of time for every question, where should they go for more questions and answers help?
Community discourse. Beth is our community ops person, and she's done a fantastic job of setting up our discourse. So community.directus.io is an excellent place. So if you are just a community user, this is a fantastic resource. The community helps answer questions. We answer questions. You'll see lots of fun folks out here that are very helpful and always willing to help you solve a problem or figure things out. So I make it a point to be in here at least a couple of times a week to take a look at things and try to help out with answers when I can. But as a team, we are here to ensure the community success. So otherwise, if you're an actual support paid user, you have your support access. You can email support, fill out the support forms on the website, fill out the support forms on the Directus Cloud dashboards. Lots of different ways that you can get in touch on that side of things.
And of course, you've got the bi-weekly office hours where you can join us just on a session like this. Beth's already put the link in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I love these sessions. Regarding the API user, I think Alex already answered this. Yeah. You don't need a password. You can just use a static token. Absolutely.
Getting some tough questions coming in here from Christian. I mean, I can take that next one around uniqueness. Is there ability in the Data Studio to create a unique constraint for a set of fields? For example, an item has to be unique for a foreign key ID and another field. I think I've had this problem. Well, I think I've had this challenge before, and the solution is creative, I would say. You can just do DB constraints on your database. And because Directus is just calling the database, you can start to put in field level constraints and logic like that. So not
sort of. We don't support them though. We won't actually discover it. So if they actually put that type of constraint on the database, it actually causes a problem. No, the option for that, the workaround at the moment. So we don't support complex primary keys or multi-field primary keys. The simplest solution is using a flow or a hook and creating a manual primary key that you concatenate to those fields into your actual primary key. It's the only easy solution currently. This has been a discussion for some time. Eventually we'll get support for this, but it's partly related to our underlying library that we use for Directus. So yeah, complex primary keys. The only way to do it is just have a flow that on save concatenates that foreign key plus whatever additional fields into the new primary key, the existing primary key. So there is a solution for it, but it's a bit of a hacky workaround. All right, Beth.
We have one more minute left before I kick you out politely, ready for us to go into this part, which is also my session, but I'm not gonna intro it just yet, so we don't want to give it too much. But yes, thank you so much for all of your questions. As we've said, we do regular office hours, so if you have questions in the future, there are lots of other places you can find us. Any last words, Jonathan, Alex?
Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for being part of our community. It's an awesome experience to share and learn and grow with such an amazing community. So thanks for showing up, folks.
Amazing. Right, cool. There's going to be about a minute or so between now and the next session. So if you are planning to stick around, which we hope you are, do go grab a drink, make yourself comfortable, and head back here, and we'll have our next session up. Oh, yes, Jonathan, on your final words, your catchphrase, of course. What a great ending.
Bryant already did it for me. Directus is magic. It is. It is. From the day I found it to today, it's been so much fun, and there's so much magic and so many cool things that you can do. Something you can learn every day. So,
Yeah.
And on that note, thanks for joining, everyone. See you all soon.
Bye.
Welcome back for session 2 of day 3. We're almost there, so stick around with us. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. Just to end things, our next session, I've been introducing myself a lot the past 2 days, so now I get to turn the tables onto Beth. And Beth, could you give us a little insight on what we've got planned for the next session?
Yes, without giving too much away, one of the best things about Directus, and I know that I am biased, but it's the community. Like, there is so much enthusiasm for Directus. I mean, we say the words Directus is magic, and it is. And one of the ways that we know that is because the community is brilliant, and we thought, what better way to then start the year Q1 than to bring in a new community program. And you're going to hear more about the program and also see some of the showcases from people already in it right now. So I'm kicking over to myself. Beth, say more. Hello everyone, welcome to the Builders segment as part of Leap Week. I'm Beth, I run Community Ops here at Directus, and I have the absolute pleasure of talking to you about a brand new community program we launched in the last month called Directus Builders. Builders is a community champion program for people who use Directus, want to share what they're building, and contribute to the community. Whether you're interested in sharing technical insights and receiving amplification from our social channels, joining a network of other Directus users, or getting our support for your own community initiatives, this program is for you if you are using Directus to build. By joining, you'll enter a private community with other experienced builders and our team. It's open to contributors, customers, partners, users, really anyone who uses Directus to build something useful. You don't need to be building something huge, you just need to be building something real. If you're the kind of person who likes helping others figure things out, sharing what you've been learning, or creating something cool, we want to hear from you. Hopefully hopefully that gives you some indication about the types of activities you can be doing as part of Directus Builders. We've already seen so much enthusiasm from the new joiners, so thank you so much. We have participants from over 13 different countries, which is super exciting to see, and that is only growing. Next up, we have some of our new builders to showcase what they are working on.
Hi, my name's Craig Harmon and I'm from Perth, Western Australia. I'm a developer and I've been using Directus for about 5 or 6 years now. And I wanted to show you a project I've been working on called Nuxtus. Now, Nuxtus started life as a boilerplate just for myself to get up and running very quickly with Directus and Nuxt. But it's kind of grown bigger than that now, and it can automate a lot of processes for me to get up and running really quickly with a front end in Nuxt being driven by Directus. So I wanted to show it to you very quickly today. So I'm just on the Nuxt website here. We can see it's very easy to get going. There's an npx create command. So if we run that in the terminal, what's going to happen now is we're going to run through the standard Directus setup. So we'll just use localhost, give a password. We'll use an SQLite database so we can get up and running nice and quickly. And now what's going to happen is the installer is going to go away, download and set up Directus just like it normally would if you installed Directus yourself manually. But it's also going to create a client project with Nuxt and Tailwind and the Directus SDK setup. But above and beyond that, it's also got some other little packages which will help us when working specifically with Directus and Nuxt. If you don't want to use the whole of Nuxtus, you don't have to. Each of the packages are available separately. If you go to the nuxtus.com website and then go to the GitHub page, you'll see that each of the individual packages can be downloaded and used in your own projects without having to use Nuxtus. But Nuxtus is just a nice, easy, quick way to get a new project up and running. So we'll just wait for Directus to finish setting up here. Perfect, so we can see now that Directus and Nuxt are all set up. So if we go into our project directory and if we run npm start, we'll see our front-end Nuxt website is ready to go. There we go. Also what's happened is we've got our Directus set up. If we log into Directus, this is all now good to go. Now, you could stop here. You can start writing your manual code if you wanted to, but Nuxtus also has some other really nice features that you might want to take advantage of. So let's create a new collection in Directus, and let's say, just for the sake of a demo, we're going to create a blog. Let's use all of the optional fields, and we'll also create a blog title and a main content area for the blog. Great, so we've added them in. That's all ready to go. One more thing we're going to do, because we want to make this blog available on the front end, is we're also going to need to go to our user settings and let's make the blog publicly readable. And now that we've done that, now this first demo is not going to be too exciting, but we'll show where we can go from there. So I haven't written any code yet, but if I go to blog, it's going to tell me that I've got no blog articles found because Nuxtus has picked up that I've created a collection called blog, but I haven't put any data in there yet. Now if I go back to my blog content and create an item, this is some content. We've now got some content. Let's go back to our blog and refresh. We're now given the index number of that blog. And if we click it, we get the blog collection name and all of the data about that blog. Okay, now that's not overly useful, but let's see what's happening in the background. If we bring up our editor, so in server is all of our Directus package. You can see there's a Directus extension here, but we can largely leave that alone. Let's have a look at the client, because that's where things get interesting. So we've got a standard Nuxt configuration, we've got Tailwind installed, but if we go into Pages, automatically Nuxtus has created this blog folder with two files in it. The index, which is the list of all the blog articles, and also a details page, which at the moment is just echoing out our blog item. But it's more than that. This blog that we've created is now a fully typed object. So it's getting its type information from the Directus schema. So we can go down here and say, well, we don't want to display the ID of the blog to list our blog items. We want to show the title. And that's fully typed in TypeScript already. So if we save that, we'll see straight away in the background here, we're now using the title to list our blog items. And we can go through again, and there's our blog article that we created. Likewise, in the blog article itself, we don't want to show just the whole object, we want to show the title, and then we want to have another div where we show the content. And again, blog is fully typed, so we know what we can pull out from the object. And there we go, there's our change. So we've now got the name of the collection, the name of the blog article that we're looking at, and the content of it, and our routing all set up for us with doing very minimal code. So if you're interested in having a look at Nuxtus, please do go to the website nuxtus.com and feel free to have it install and let me know how you go. Thank you very much.
Today I would like to show you how to supercharge AI batch processing using Directus MCP with a self-learning note-taking workflow. Batch processing is really effective for situations where you need raw speed, but it kind of breaks down when you need to make creative decisions on individual items and on the batch as a whole. You can't really do that without a human element. AI models I found are great for those sorts of tasks, but they break down when you give them a whole bunch of data, and they also struggle with finding the right information to pull in to make those creative decisions. So the solution I found is to teach AI to take notes. By implementing a workflow that lets Directus MCP take notes directly on whatever it's working on, we gain the ability to do things like long-running task tracking, because the model can pick up where it left off and start fresh with a new context window. We also get things like self-improving database access. Take a note on all the different things that you ran into difficulty with and what you did to solve them and how it worked out. And it speeds up future runs because it can read that note and go, okay, so don't do this, and I'll be able to just continue with the task I was working on. And then by letting it take notes, we can consolidate a whole bunch of data that was stored in the database. Say, for example, you wanted to pull out all of the aliases for your articles that are related to rabbits, and you also want the ID for each one. Well, you can just dump that in a note and analyze it in future runs. So, in our case, Directus is the knowledge backbone. Every note is just a key value pair. I'll go ahead and show you the notes table here. It's a very simple setup. We have a key, which is just a string, and this is what the AI model uses to kind of categorize what the different notes are about. And we have a value, and that's just a big markdown field. It's a very simple setup, but it's surprisingly powerful. By using semantic keys and explicit instructions on how to record and review notes, we give the AI models a very quick and effective way to find the context they need. So, this database has a problem. We have a whole bunch of articles. We have 124 articles. And the titles don't really make any sense. Oh, the bodies are in Latin. I can't work with this. So I've created a prompt for Claude to read the article titles and come up with a concept proposal for each one. What could this article actually be about? So let's look at the system prompt here. You can see that there's two things that it's informing the AI model about. That there's an AI notes table and the rough structure of that table, and that it needs to read and record its database insights, especially how it solved problems it ran into, and just update that note on every run. This gives it the self-learning ability we were talking about earlier. It's able to figure out what it ran into last time and fix it on the next run. Now, back to the task. I've told the AI model it's a skilled content analyst and writer. We have a huge collection of articles, all the bodies are full of nonsense, all that. All right, so its job is to record the concepts that it comes up with in an article concepts note. It's not sure what to do with an article based on the title. Be creative, find a wacky concept. Then we have some very specific instructions. We say always read the template and template article concepts, this is a note, to determine how to structure your output. Always create a new article concepts note for each run. Always give it the exact name. Always process 30 articles. Always review the last note you created before starting to make sure you don't duplicate any work. This template lets us make sure that we get consistent output on every run. All right, let's go ahead and run this a few times and see what its output looks like. I'm going to turn on auto refresh, and then I'm going to go into Claude, add a prompt from Directus, and examine articles and propose concepts. If you want to know how to use this feature, go ahead and take a look at the Directus MCP documentation, and then we're just going to send it. Now, one of the fun things you can do with read and write access to Directus is if the model makes a mistake, you can ask it to update the prompt to fix its mistake in future runs. Article concepts. It has identified correctly that just about every article appears to be lorem ipsum gibberish and occasional test content. All right, so came up with a bunch of different articles on a bunch of different ideas. In a bit, we're going to use this to actually write all these different article concepts, but for now, I just want to keep going through the batch process to show you how it's able to pick up where it left off and continue. On this run, if you notice, it actually picked up that it needed to look up the translations and didn't have to figure that out from the schema this time. All right, it is a new day. My Claude usage limits have reset, and we are ready to continue with step 2, which is generating the articles based on the concepts that we've put together. All of the article concepts have now been saved in these concept notes. They take the article title, they try to figure out what on earth the article should be about and propose a concept. So now we have the next step of the process, which is to generate an actual article for each of the articles we generate concepts on in both English and German. And we're going to go in batches of 10 and see how well that works. We'll take this prompt and it should automatically read over all of our article concept notes and start filling in articles for those. Let's go. So we're going to use the turn concepts into full-fledged articles prompt. That's going to go and read through all of our article concept notes and start filling in those articles, and I'll show you those articles as it writes them. I have no idea if these articles are going to make any sense. This is going to be fun. I'm having fun reading through these articles. I have no idea how helpful any of this is, but it at least sounds very convincing. Now, the key advantage to this approach is that if we were generating concepts and writing articles at the same time, we'd have to use much smaller batches. But because we split the process into 2 steps, we've saved a ton of context window and we're able to work in larger batches. And as a bonus, we can do multiple things with those article summaries while we're working on generating those articles from those summaries. Now, this isn't the most efficient workflow for generating articles. There's way better workflows for that. We're just demonstrating this concept. But a nice thing about this approach is that you can perform multiple tasks at the same time. For example, while we were working on these articles, we could also be working on something completely different using the notes that we're generating the articles from. I have this prompt here, categorize article concepts, which will allow Claude to suggest an article taxonomy based on the summaries it's already generated. It'll just read all the article concept notes and create a new note suggesting that new taxonomy. I like the way it describes these articles as a fascinating collection of technical and business-focused article concepts with creative, jargon-filled titles that have been transformed into practical, valuable content ideas. I'm not quite sure I'd be so positive about it, but it gets the idea across. All right, let's take a look at the categories that it generated and the opportunities it identified. So here's some content gaps: AI and ethics, sustainable technology operations, human-centered digital transformation, all sorts of other different things. And here are some of the categories it's come up with. System architecture, it's put a bunch of different articles in that category. E-commerce, digital business, data management and analytics, user experience and interface design, business operations or business optimization management, automation and AI systems, project management and collaboration. So it's basically taken all of those articles that we put together and categorize them according to common themes in those articles. This could be really useful if you have an existing content collection that you're trying to build a new categorization system for. And what's great is you could just take this and create another prompt to actually apply that taxonomy to articles and create categories and all sorts of different things for that in Directus. So by the end of this run, here's what the AI model has built. Concept proposals for every article in our database, full body content for many of those articles in English and German, a whole new content categorization system for the articles it wrote, progress log so that it doesn't lose its place, and database access hints that documents how the challenges were solved so that on future runs it could do even better. Instead of treating AI like a disposable worker, or one that can infinitely stuff and work on something until it gets all confused, we're treating it like a teammate that tracks and follows up on what it's done across multiple days, multiple runs, starting with a clean slate on each task and only pulling in the information that it needs. We turned a human-in-the-loop batch processing task into an AI creative workflow by splitting it into discrete steps and letting it kind of pick up where it left off. We gave the model a way to track progress. We built templates to make the results more consistent and reusable, and we recorded information about the database to help the AI model get smarter over time. I've had a ton of fun nailing down this workflow and testing it on all sorts of tasks. For my work, we're actually using it to do things similar to this, where we're analyzing a huge amount of content and trying to figure out how to organize and categorize and do all sorts of things. And it's doing really well. The ability to take notes, record what it's done, and just kind of start over and create its own context has been incredibly helpful with turning a workflow that works really well for 1 or 2 articles into something that works well across thousands. So thank you for your time. I really look forward to seeing what everyone does with Directus and Directus MCP going forward, especially as Directus MCP evolves, AI models get more capable, and just the overall core gets stronger. The future is going to be fun.
Hey, I'm Matt from Rolly. We're a Directus partner agency based in the UK, and today I want to give you a quick look at what we've been building, both for our clients and for the Directus community. So one of the things we've built for Directus that we're most proud of is the Nuxt Directus module. It's an open source Nuxt module that wraps the official Directus SDK and gives you proper first-class integration with Nuxt. The idea is simple. You add your module, point it at your Directus instance, and that's it, you're up and running. You get session-based authentication with cross-domain support out of the box, automatic type generation from your Directus collections, type-safe WebSockets, Nuxt image is automatically configured for your Directus assets, and we even embed the Directus admin panel right into the Nuxt DevTools. So let me show you how to get up and running with that. So I'll just open up Visual Studio Code. The first thing you need to do is go into your Nuxt config, add the Nuxt Directus SDK, install it in whatever package manager you like, then go to your environment variable, add your Directus URL, and if you want to use things like admin server endpoints or automatic type generation, then just add in a Nuxt Directus admin token as well, and that'll be automatically handled for you. Don't worry, nothing will be passed to the front end, it's all completely safe. And that's it. When you start the server, you get access to everything you'd expect from your Directus SDK automatically imported. So as you can see here on my blog page, I've got the Directus. All I do is call use Directus, and then things like read items automatically imported, and it's fully type safe. You can see all of my collections. I get errors if if it doesn't actually exist in the Directus schema, and I can do things that you'd expect. Fully typed filtering, fully typed nested fields, and again I will get errors if something doesn't exist, and fully typed sort. That's it. It's up, it's running. You can do, there's even helper methods for things like getting your Directus file URLs, where you can pass in options around your thumbnails, whether you want to download it, what you want to call it. All that is handled automatically for the Nuxt Directus SDK. We built this because we kept solving the same problems across client projects, and rather than copying and pasting boilerplate, we packaged it up properly and made it available on NPM. It's MIT licensed, and we're just about to release version 5, which targets Nuxt 4 and the latest Directus SDK. Here's some of the work that we built using Directus and the Nuxt Directus SDK. So that's a quick snapshot of what we're building at Rolly. If you're building anything with Nuxt and Directus, feel free to give the Nuxt Directus SDK a look. Otherwise, if you want to chat about anything Nuxt, Directus, or even potentially a future project, please do reach out at rolly.io. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the showcases and to everyone who's already joined and showed enthusiasm. We are really excited about bringing the community together in this way and to see all the possibilities that can come out of it. And yeah, hopefully we have done enough to convince you to join. That's it from me. If you have any questions, do head over to the community forum at community.directus.io and have a great rest of Leap Week, everyone. See you soon. Bye. Here we are at the beginning of the end. It is the start of the final session of this Leap Week. Hopefully in the last session, I either convinced you to join the Directus Builders program or to become a builder with Directus and start your Directus journey. Thank you so much again to the people that were involved in demoing Directus as part of that. We really appreciate you. And we appreciate you. If you're still here, we appreciate you. Matt, do you want to give us a bit of a short recap of what's been going on with Leap Week and what the next session is about? What's next?
Absolutely. So as we said at the beginning, this was really our first Leap Week in give or take 2 years. So it's been a lot of relearning what we used to do, but it was so much fun to be able to bring this together for you and have you join us. And hopefully you've been learning some things all the way from the first day, having been in the first session, talk about, where do we see ourselves fitting within this big mechanism and cog and wheels and everything's kind of turning, and where does Directus fit? All the way to AI in the enterprise, where we had great friends from HelloFresh and Gather.dev to join us to talk about how they're viewing AI in the enterprise. I know we focused a lot on AI, but we really do think it is something that is going to definitely impact the way products are being changed and shaped, and we want to be ahead of that for you, because we think it's going to be a really powerful thing for collaborative backends and CMSs. So day 2, thank you again to our partners, Railway, Firecrawl, and Clay, for joining us. Fingers still crossed, even though it already happened. Just everything came together sort of last minute, and that's just a testament to how great this ecosystem is, how great the developer tools all partner and integrate together. So be sure to go check them out. They have incredible products, and I'm really glad we got to highlight those for those sessions. And that brings us to today and being able to talk about Directus. And I think it's just fitting we're ending with the roadmap session, having started with where we're seeing things shift in market, because we're going to talk about, the things we've been building, the things we're building now, and also I'll pull the veil back a little bit, but there's something really big in the works that we're really excited to roll out. We can't talk about it too much quite yet, but rest assured, you will get more information soon, but I won't spoil it. So Beth, if you could give us a little segue into this last session. Thanks again, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, as Matt said, thank you so much for sticking around, and we hope to have a peek in a moment, because we have Reich and James talking through what's next with Directus. Bye, everyone.
All right, and with that, we've made it to the last session of the Leap Week. I really hope you enjoyed all the great announcements so far. But before we wrap up today, we wanted to take a beat and talk a little bit about what we've shipped recently and what is next for the Directus platform as a whole. I'm Reich van Zanten, the CTO and co-founder here at Directus, and with me is James.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm James. I'm working at Directus as a staff product manager. Thank you for the intro, Reich.
So first and foremost, some of you might have seen that on GitHub Discussions, we put a big banner and we posted a couple of comments about our new roadmap. So we've moved platforms over to roadmap.directus.io. You might have seen it. Why did we make this change, James?
If we look at the old mechanism for feature requests, we used to manage this through GitHub Discussions. Honestly, it became a place for things to kind of go away and die, unfortunately, through no means on our part or no deliberate means, but it wasn't so integrated with, linear and the development workflows of the teams. So it's kind of had this, disjointed journey between the feature requests and then how they get actioned and then making that visible to the community as well. So we've started to use a new product. And like Reich said, you'll have seen on some of the discussion threads that we've moved over now. So some of the threads have been locked. Some of them we've kept open because we want to keep the discussion going, right? And we don't want that to stop on particularly some of the ones that have been upvoted heavily. But what you will find is that, these have been ported over to our new roadmap, which you can find at roadmap.directus.io/roadmap. You can go in here, search for existing discussions, and we've maintained that link back to the GitHub thread as well, because there's lots of useful information there. So yeah, that's kind of how things look. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Reich?
Yeah, I'll say it's one of those interesting points where it feels very obvious to keep it all centralized on the repo. I mean, GitHub already has discussions. They already have upvotes. They already have like a submitted by status. They already have the whole it's approved or denied or completed and all that kind of stuff. So it might be a little weird to just see that move over. But at the end of the day, we kind of just outgrew the tooling that was available, right? So even right now, when we noticed, we want to move over, there's no way for us to prevent new ones from being open on GitHub without shutting down all of the old ones, which is very unfortunate because then people can't find them. So at the end of the day, this is a great upgrade to at least be able to manage these feature requests and also help our team ship the things that are truly important here to the community. With that as well, any request that you put into product line right now goes straight to our product team. So you're also straight talking to the source and the folks in charge of that roadmap. Yours truly and James in this case, which is a lot nicer line of communication in that regard. So just as before, please do take a look at the roadmap. If you see something that you agree with or you're aligned with, please hit that upvote button. If you have a different request that nobody else has requested yet on this particular list, hit the new request button and it will fly straight to us and we'll reach out for more information.
That's right.
Give it to me.
Yeah.
+1. Any updates?
Direct
with
line
that,
of communication, like you said, and
exactly.
Feel free to add an extra layer of detail if you see something that you see yourself in the request, but you want to add additional information, because that comes directly to me and Reich.
Exactly. And with that being said, I think let's take a look at this roadmap, sort of going in reverse chronological order maybe for this one. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that we've recently completed. So we'll group this roughly by release instead of chronological order. Well, I guess it's kind of the same if you think about it, but we plan these things out on a roadmap over time. But starting with 11.16 release, we have the global draft versions, which is a part of a bigger new project. James, what is that project all about?
Yeah, so I think there's been a perception that the content versioning features inside Directus have been kind of a advanced feature. They're a little bit tucked away. They work a little bit like GitHub branches, funny enough, today. But for content editors that need to version content, that workflow for how you work with a draft, how that gets promoted or published into the the live item, has been not super intuitive. So we started on this track to make that a lot more native, and the latest update brings a global draft version to any item that has content versioning enabled. So the moment you switch that on, you're going to have a draft version inside that item. That was something you'd have to create yourself before. And then with that, we've brought that into the visual editor as well. So if you're looking at the visual editor and you want to preview draft content, you can now do that via the visual editor. So it's part of a foundational part to making all of these content editing workflows much more intuitive for your business folk who are managing content. And we'll see extensions of that over the next couple of releases, for sure, particularly in the V12 release, to make that feel much more native, that whole publishing workflow of content.
So practically, that means that today, the moment you open an item, it's straight into draft. So then it's way more of that sort of 1-2 step. You make your changes through draft, you hit publish by the time you're ready. You don't have to manually switch back and forth ahead of time for that to work. Now, that allows us to start working towards way more powerful capabilities in the future as well, of course. So we're thinking about things like dedicated permissions for versioning, or potentially approval workflows even, or releases of multiple of these content items together. So this first draft change is one in a step of many changes, all related to what we're calling the CEW project, or the Content Editorial Workflow project internally. Awesome.
That's right.
Then another thing we shipped recently that fits really well in this sort of 1-2 punch of you make a bunch of changes and you ship it out. Can you guess what it is? It's the deployments module. So we just shipped a new module directly in the studio, integrated with Vercel, quickly followed up by Netlify by a community member. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What is that deployments module all about?
Yeah, so it's something we've even struggled with internally, our internal marketing teams that use Directus. The sites are deployed on Vercel or Netlify or other hosting providers. And let's say you're managing some content inside Directus. You then have to leave Directus, assuming you have access to that third-party solution, to then go and deploy your site to reflect the changes that you've made in your CMS. Now, that's a little bit nuanced, whether you want all of your content editors to have access to that system, which is primarily about deployments, potentially not, but maybe you want to give them the flexibility to still rebuild the site on demand. So this is really about bringing that functionality natively into Directus Core so that you can make those changes, and then you can go in and you can hit trigger a build in Vercel or Netlify. And then we'll give you the deployment status, the build logs, give you a link out to see the site once it's built. So yeah, I mean, all covered by RBAC. So if you want to delegate responsibility beyond the admin in terms of who can trigger deployments, that's all kind of covered by the existing role-based access control settings inside Directus. That's what it's all about. I mean, I think we'd love to extend this beyond Vercel and Netlify as well. So you probably got some ideas.
I was going to say, like with most everything we've built in Directus, we've tried to do this in as most of an abstracted way as we could, which is why we saw Netlify flying relatively quickly. Now, this is too good of a segue not to use it. If people want to request which one we should add as a third, where do they do that?
Well, I guess you could come on to here, right? And you could still add the feedback here, just so it's tightly related to this project. But this is a completed project, so maybe the best thing to do would be to hit new request. Tell us that you want Cloudflare pages or something like that, and then that's going to come right to us. And obviously, that's going to be something that we're already thinking about it, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, on to a very different topic then, and this is a feature request that I opened back on GitHub maybe 4 years ago, if not 5 at this point. The ability to potentially filter within JSON fields. It is one that we've sort of toyed with. We've tried it out. We've done a PR in the past that didn't quite land, but there's updates on that front. James, what's the latest?
There is, and they're currently showing is in progress, but part of this was actually released in like you said, the 11.16. But yeah, this is really about bringing support to interact with JSON data in your database at the API. So the first piece that we delivered in 11.16 allows you to select fields within a JSON blob, very simply. So you don't have to bring the whole thing, client side and deal with it yourself. That is nice, but it's clearly not the end goal. The end goal is to bring full support in the API for filtering, sorting, aliasing across all of the different database vendors, of course, and then extend it, to the SDK as well. Make sure it's not just supported in the REST API. So we'll see a big chunk of that, particularly the filtering drop in the next release. And I think that in subsequent releases there might be additional things just to get us to that final state. But yeah, like you said, I think the original GitHub discussion, maybe we can have a look. Got a feeling this was, a little while ago. But lots of community support for this. So really happy to be able to work on this. Shout out to Tim internally, who's been working on this. It was actually a bit of a hackathon project that ended up getting rolled out into the core. So
it's something we've all been wanting to have for a long time. So I'm glad we're getting to it now.
Awesome. Yeah, super exciting. What about something that's probably quite close to your involvement, which is we've had a bit of an AI-related work stream over the last few months. Things have developed not just in the market, but also for Directus. So maybe you want to give us a few thoughts on how things have developed.
I might use this as a little bit of a sneaky personal pitch, but if you happen to have caught my recent keynotes at Vue.js Amsterdam conference or coming up at Vue.js Atlanta, One thing that we have been heavily focused on is to see how can we use the AI technology stack, so LLMs and generative images and things like that, within the product in a way that actually makes sense for our users, right? So the thing I'm personally always scared of is shipping a bunch of gimmicks that nobody then cares about, which, hot takes, but it happens all over the place. So how do we use that technology then in a way that actually makes sense? So the first thing we did is implement that MCP endpoint that shipped, I want to say in 11.13 or even 12. It's a little while back now. It's been out for a minute. We did it as a standalone package first to test the waters. That went really incredibly well. Then we moved it into core as a native feature that is just there by default. So that allows LLMs outside of the product to use the content and data within, but also take other system actions like doing the data modeling or even setting up permissions, although make sure you confirm what it's doing. The second big step for us there was to move that experience into the product itself. So right now we have that AI chat sidebar natively in the product. So it's always available in the bottom right, and it knows the context of the page. Where are you? What tools are available? What can it do both on the client and server side? So on the server side, we've implemented the same MCP tools that you had before from external LLMs. So that is things like changing the data model, reading or writing items, retrieving files, and some other system operations like that. The second big thing we started developing is sort of the client-side tooling integration of that. And what that means is that the LLM chat sidebar can take actions in the studio on your behalf. So not just on the API, but in the studio as well. We're continuing to explore what that looks like. So right now we're focusing heavily on exactly the assets and translations workflow. So that is really focusing on, helping you do the content creation in various languages that you might not be native in on the fly, in line in the studio, rather than doing it, hidden away in the background. So a lot of very exciting stuff on that front. We're also doing a little bit of R&D into sort of more agentic workflows in the background and background processes, but that is a little too early to share too much about.
Nice. And I think since we released some of these capabilities, particularly the embedded AI assistant, a lot of feedback we got was around extending support, right? I think we went live with Anthropic and OpenAI, but maybe you can add a bit on how we've looked at support beyond that and what people are still asking for.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, as anybody who's been, anybody who stumbled into Twitter in the recent week or so, I mean, you see these models, they evolve so rapidly that it is near impossible to just pick one vendor and be happy with it for, years to come. So as with most everything else at Directus, like we just saw with the other features we talked about as well around deployment, we want to make sure we built this in an agnostic a way as we possibly can. So we indeed shipped it with an abstraction with just on top of OpenAI and Anthropic to start with, but then immediately people started mentioning, it's like, oh, but what about Gemini, or what about Grok, God forbid, or what about an OpenAI endpoint that I self-host, which is very interesting. So we started shipping some of the big other vendors that you'd expect. So I think I know we added support for Gemini pretty quickly after. But are now also really focusing in on like, okay, what are the nuances of like an OpenAI that runs on Azure that you have full control over, or what happens if you run a Mistral AI model that you have self-hosted, to really tie back into that data sovereignty play, right? Because at the end of the day, the technology stack is really cool and exciting, but you might not be comfortable with sending, that private data from your database over to some external company that you may or may not trust. So this is a really interesting next angle here for the way we treat AI within Directus that I think fits in really well in our sort of overall self-hosted data sovereignty play.
Very nice. Very nice. So yeah, you can add an OpenAI API compatible, that's a hell of a mouthful, provider inside the Directus settings today if you want to use the AI assistant with an alternative provider. Let's come back to the completed section. I know we're jumping all over the place as we go, but I think that's okay. Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting one internally for the team, at least. I think collaborative editing was a capability that was developed certainly before I joined Directus, but originally built as a extension. Is that right?
That's right. And that was really to make sure that we, just as with the MCP endpoint, had a way to experiment with what that needed to look and feel like. So as you might imagine, with something as broadly used as Directus in terms of use cases, with that comes a lot of different hopes and dreams about how that collaborative nature of the thing works. Is everybody working on the same draft state that we just talked about for the CEW project? Or are you working all locally, and does it sync up only when you hit save? And how does that then do merge resolutions and complicated things like that? So we shipped it as a plugin first to test the waters. That went really well. We learned a lot from that. And then by the time we were like, okay, this feels now like we know what this needs to look like in the product for real, we were able to move it back into core. And luckily, because extensions are built as very modular pieces that are built in the same way that we built the core product, it was actually relatively straightforward to move that in here as well.
Nice. I think that one was added in 11.15 maybe, but yeah, that's now basically a core capability. So if you want to enable collaborative editing, you can do that in the project settings. Once you enable that, you're going to see multiple avatars if you're collaborating over the same item inside the studio, and you get things like field locking behavior as well. So if somebody's working in a field, obviously you can't edit it while they're editing it. So yeah, really nice feature for content folks who want to collaborate together. So highly recommend switching it on, and of course giving us feedback if you experience anything that you think could be improved or anything like that.
You know where to find us now. Also, with that, a quick shout out. We often do use extensions as the vessel to do experimental work. So if you're curious to see what is the newest of the new, do take a look at the extensions that are out there, both from us and the community. We post a lot of experimental work on the Directus Labs GitHub organization that I think is worth a quick look.
Awesome. Maybe that's a good segue into something which we're going to have to comment on, because it's sitting right at the top. Certainly the thing that caught my attention since I joined Directus, right, which is this one. And the reason I say that is because you mentioned extensions, and you mentioned, at the moment, this is something where I think people who are looking for a solution to config as code or more generally speaking, environment synchronization, they are having to look to third-party extensions, and there are some good ones out there. I think that's something we can say for sure. So a bit of context on this one today. I think the schema snapshot is all or nothing, right? You can synchronize one environment to another, but it's all or nothing. And I think that's not really providing the granular control that people need. I think they need to be able to do it resource specific, be able to include certain collections, and of course support things beyond the schema itself, roles, permissions, etc. Maybe we could comment here. I mean, I think this is a really big priority for us this year, and we want to give visibility that this is top of mind. What I would say is, at the moment, if you're struggling with this, look to the third-party extensions. Some of the third-party extensions here, the Directus Sync underneath Tractor, really good, fully modular, decomposes the schema into discrete files. Highly recommend that if you need kind of selective syncing capabilities in absence of anything native. The migration bundle is actually a Directus Labs one. This is very UI driven. Allows you to select resource types, push them to different environments. And then the Directus Schema Sync as well is another one that I'm aware of that allows for sort of event-driven auto export as well. So there are some great solutions out there, right? But I think that one of the concerns is some of these are, they're not native solutions. And so we're really looking to bring kind of a first-party experience here as well. Don't know if you want to add anything on this one, Reich.
Well, I think the fascinating thing here, the question that is, I'm sure, on top of everybody's mind is, what took you so long? Like, why has this thing been open for such a long time? It's been the number 1 or 2, at least top 3 upvoted feature requests for, as long as this project has been live. I think it's interesting to dive into that context a little bit, because there's 2 feature requests that come to mind that have been open and upvoted a lot. The second one we'll circle back to. I would say put in the comments if you can guess which it is. But config as code, it's one of the ones where there's just such a tremendous wide range of opinions and hopes and dreams, right? Even different use cases as well. Some people want to use it as a sort of way to move stuff from a dev environment to a prod environment, which is very valid. Some people want to use it more as a sort of backup and restore approach that you can go back in time to a previous state of your project. Some people have been telling us they want to use it as a sort of template for new projects. Like if you run an agency, you just want to, spin up multiple copies of the same underlying template. And all of those different use cases, they all kind of require the same solution with a twist. So they're all slightly different and they all have their own requirements and differences, which is why this has been in research phase for a long, long time, while we just capture and ingest all of that information. So over the now years, we've been talking to a lot of different people about what this means and what those different use cases are and outline how it all comes together. And we have a pretty good plan now into how this could actually look like for real as a native feature. So that is super exciting and something, I look forward to having.
Cool. Have we covered the completed? Do we want to look at other things on here that are either in progress or coming up?
I mean, when it comes to the completed list, there's a lot more to look at here on the roadmap itself. In the interest of time, I don't want to spend the rest of the whole day or even this week just going through them item by item. If you do have questions about any of this other stuff, by the way, you know where to find us now on the roadmap itself, but also we have the community, of course, right? So we have community.directus.io. If you have questions about anything you hear today, anything here on the roadmap, feel free to put a post up there as well. We actively monitor that. I'm more than happy to chat with you about anything and everything, frankly. So find us there. I think, a couple of small things that are probably worth calling out on the to-do list. The MIME type restrictions on file interfaces, relatively tiny thing, but it's something, people have been asking for quite some time. So we're very glad that we've been able to put that in. We did a revision to revisions, an update to how, the comparison looks like if you look to compare the current state of your item with a previous state. So we changed that from the little sidebar you might have seen with the red-green changes into more of a side-by-side view that is a lot more in-depth and allows you to explore, the things that changed. Other than that, we did also finally add bulk file and folder downloading. So in the file library, you can select multiple things at once, just download them all as a folder instead of having to go one by one. It's the little things that are huge quality of life unlocks here for the platform. So oftentimes things like that, they're a little bit too small to mention in a thing like this, but it's definitely worth shouting out, I think.
For sure. The other one that comes to mind is the external or third-party JWT support. I think this is something we saw a lot of feedback around how to manage that, how to validate a third-party JWT, translate it into Directus accountability object. And I think we exposed some utils there to make that much easier. And there's a really great reference guide. So if you are looking to, integrate sort of for machine-to-machine purposes with Okta and things like that, then there's a great reference tutorial which hopefully is like flashing up on screen or something right now that I'd recommend people check out as well.
And it's another one of those things, right? It's like from the outside looking in, it's just hard to really know what that means and what that unlocks. But that external JWT validation means that you can have your users log in using something like Okta or Auth0 and then use that same token you already have from that external service as the token in Directus, which is, not everybody might need that, but when you do, you really do. And there's really no other workaround. So again, I'm very glad that our extension service combined with some of these utilities that we provided are now allowing you to unlock that otherwise blocker.
Good stuff. I think beyond that, looking at kind of, what's in progress now, I think we've touched upon a lot of these already. Like we said, the global draft was the kind of foundation towards this draft and publishing workflow, having that really intuitive experience and incorporating things within that, like autosave when you're editing a form, which kind of relates to this one, right? You want to save and stay. Well, if you have autosave, well, that kind of becomes somewhat redundant. So looking to solve some of these problems that exist in the to-do with, some of the solutions that are also in progress right now.
Absolutely. I teased it a little bit before when I said top 3 most upvoted things. Save and stay button, definitely one of the 3, but we have to touch on the elephant in the room, which is renaming collections and fields. You want it, we all want it. Everybody has wanted it from a long time. This is one where it's not so much there it is, triple digit.
There it is.
The big one, the white whale of this team. Where the config as code or even the save and stay default state is one of the ones that takes a lot of research because there's so many different opinions and so many different ways of approaching it. Renaming collections and fields feels like a very dumb one in comparison, right? It's like you have it or you don't. There's really not a lot to figure out for that. So you might be wondering, like, what the hell takes you so long to do that for the same reason? And this is, quite frankly, system design thing from back in the day. So we have, when we make that change in the database, well, of course, it's a very destructive change in the database that is connected. So there's a third-party tooling problem potentially. But also there's a lot of internal references that need to be updated, some of which can be a bit under the hood for things like layout options and other references that are otherwise hidden. So we've seen quite a few different experiments on this topic recently in extensions, which again, thank you for that. It's great inspiration. Make sure to check those out. But we also recently started experimenting internally with like, okay, how could this come together in a way that doesn't immediately break everything, right? So how can we work on API aliasing, for example, to unlock some of the requirements for this without breaking the connected database and its connected services that we might not know about. Alternatives as well, of course, like what are the options that we do all of those updates in the system tables as one giant transaction in case something goes wrong and you have to undo it. All of that is to say is, do know that there's not a day that I wake up and not think about renaming collections of fields. You find me in person at conferences and it's the first thing you bring up, and do know that I've heard you loud and clear, and it's something that's very, very top of mind.
Good stuff. So we expect to hear more about this one, do you think, this year?
For sure. I mean, you're going to hear me bring it up every single time, if anything. So you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear about it. Now, we have some very active experiments in flight now to see how we can bring this to life in a way that doesn't completely break everything or is a huge breaking change to migrate into and all that kind of stuff. Because, of course, it's one thing to say we now allow you to rename everything, but the migration into the new version takes, a week to do by hand. That's not good enough for us either. So bear with, there's quite a lot of technical work to be figured out here, but do know that we're actively talking about it.
It's front of mind.
Front of mind.
Good stuff. Beyond or behind all of this, right? We've spoken a lot about a lot of stuff today, but maybe to think beyond just what's visible on the roadmap here. Few rumors on forums, few things being hinted at over the last year. People are naturally going to be curious about what that means. If you know, you know. If you've seen things in the forums, you might know what we're speaking about, but can you tell us anything about that, Rike? Is there anything we can let people know about?
Well, I can say we have been teasing and sometimes leaking, who you are, some of the information behind this. But yes, the rumors there are true. We have been hard at work behind the scenes on something brand new as well. So this is going to be a separate thing from Directus altogether, with more of a backend as a service focus than we've had in the past. It's its own image, inspired by Directus and using the learnings that we have, but aimed at a way sort of larger scale multi-data source deployment paradigm. I don't want to overshare too much yet before people get mad at me, but we are putting out a sign-up link if you want to learn more. So we're going to do some early sign-ups for alpha release for sort of private testing phase. We're very excited about this, and I wish I could just share, a lot more than that, but be assured we're going to be sharing a lot more in the next Leap Week about this project.
Very nice. Very nice. I think that's a small teaser for now, and like I said, there should be a resource for people to go and sign up and get onto some kind of wait list for something. Look forward to hearing more about that. All right.
With that all being said, I know we mentioned it a couple of times today, but if you have any other feature requests or ideas about what this roadmap should look like or what you find important or don't, that's also very valuable information. Know where to find us at roadmap.directus.io. That gets you straight in touch with James and yours truly. For everything else, any questions, any concerns, any other teasers, find your way to community.directus.io. We have a wonderful Discord server over there that we actively moderate and manage. And that is incredibly active within the community. So I highly recommend find your way to those two resources, and we'll see you on the internet.